All right, what's going on, folks? Welcome to another episode of the Adventure One podcast. I've done a couple episodes recently talking about a lot of gun stuff, so this one's different. We're going back to talking about hiking and camping, most specifically the hiking side of that, and some sock and boot questions that Jared was asking me earlier. Now, Jared and I have done many hikes together in the desert, in the woods. Jared's an Eagle Scout. We've hiked all over the place. And so we just got to talking about boots and socks, and it's not the most interesting conversation, but I think it comes with a lot of lessons learned. And so when we were talking about this, we're like, dude, let's sit down and record this, because if this is valuable to us, I'm sure there's somebody out there nursing some blisters on their feet that could probably benefit from hearing this. So what's going on, dude?
Oh, man. Bad memories floating through my mind right now. It's all is well. All is well. How you doing?
I am doing well, and I have definitely been there too. And I've been where, I've been at a place where I've realized, oh, my boots and socks are fine, and I haven't admitted that things were trouble. But then I've also been at a place where I'm like, oh no, what am I doing? I made the worst choice.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the boot and shoe industry, there are definitely people who are out there who mean the best in terms of helping you pick out the best equipment. But then there's also a lot of people out there who just want you to buy that pair.
Yep. And especially, I'm the value shopper, right? I'm trying to find, the cheapest boots, or, I want to buy the most durable things. I'm going to have these things for 20 years. That doesn't always work out in your favor.
Yeah, and everything's a balancing act. I mean, as an engineer that there's no such thing as a free lunch. As soon as you amp up one feature, then you increased weight or you increased whatever. You can't just have the ultimate, it's warm and waterproof and comfortable. I mean, if somebody said insulated Crocs, you would just laugh, right? You did, because you can't have all of it.
Nope.
I also want to start off one funny thing that happened right before this conversation. So Jared and I are planning a hike with some other guys, going up into some terrain I think it'll be hilly. I don't think it'll be mountainous at all. I think it'll be hilly. But Jared was looking at some new potential boot and sock changes, and we were talking about this, and he asked me, okay, what type of socks? And I gave him a recommendation. He's like, yeah, but what brand? And then I tend to be very opinionated about these sort of things and just ramble and talk about the differences between the brands and the materials. And so also today, I was selling a kayak on Facebook Marketplace. Turns out I responded to that guy, and I sent him about 2 paragraphs of information about sock brands and wet feet and all, and he didn't respond. He definitely didn't show up to buy my kayak. He didn't respond at all.
It's a little confused. Socks, kayaks, yeah.
She's like, yeah, I'm not doing any business with this friggin' weirdo.
Yeah, he's way too opinionated on socks to buy a kayak from.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. I started off with a kayak and we ended up at wet socks. I think I'll find somebody else. So I guess this is going to be more of a conversation and between Jared and I and anybody who's listening who wants to learn about sock and footwear selection for hiking. But I think this applies to a lot of backpack style hunting as well. So Jared, I guess let's go back through kind of what are some of the questions you were asking.
Well, let's start just with the baseline. So I just ordered some new boots. You'd recommended the Danners, so I picked up a couple. Picked up a pair of those. Hopefully, should be here within the week.
Awesome.
I was trying to get some sizing on those. Obviously you can buy larger for different sock configurations. Liner with a wool outer coat or what have you. So I was trying to figure out, okay, if I buy this size, am I going to be able to fit with my socks? Do my socks work well? So on and so forth.
Yeah.
So the questions I was looking for, hey, what kind of liners do you use? What kind of socks do you use? Do you have a preference? Do you always go one or the other? You want to start there?
I don't go one or the other. I go both. I wear socks on both feet. Tends to help. So yes, I do wear liners. I did not used to. And I don't think that they're absolutely necessary for everybody. But I think my feet just sweat a lot. And maybe I say that because I'm sitting here as a guy with sweaty feet. Maybe I say that because I live in Texas. And so, even when it's cold outside to a Texan, it's still at a temperature where your feet are going to sweat. And I tend to do a lot of hiking where I'm crossing creeks and swampy, boggy stuff. And so maybe it's not sweat, maybe it's just the general humidity level within my boot, whatever the cause may be. I wear liners because they help pull the moisture away from my foot and into whatever the next layer is. And I went through many hikes wearing just cotton socks, and it gets misleading in the market too, because you'll see a lot of socks labeled boot socks. And a lot of times they're at Western wear places or places like Tractor Supply that sell a little bit of Western wear, but also sell some other, entry-level camping stuff as well. So I think those boot socks are more for cowboy boots, not for hiking in the woods all day boots. And yeah, they'll get you by, if you're wearing boots on a job site or something. But if you're just walking all day, rubbing your feet against the boots, I think you need something more than those. And so, yes, I wear liners. That's an example right there. Polypropylene. What's interesting is I was telling this to another buddy of mine, and he was like, I just wear dress socks. And I made the face that you just made. I thought it was ridiculous. I'm like, what? You wear dress socks? He's like, yeah, it wicks the moisture away from my feet. And he also wears heavy rubber boots every time we hunt. What's the brand? Shoot, I can't believe. Lacrosse. Yeah. So I've got some. Lacrosse boots are especially up in like the upper Midwest. Everybody wears them up there, walking through any swampy, boggy stuff. But he wears dress socks with Lacrosse leather, rubber boots. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how do you do that? And I started realizing those rubber boots trap all the moisture in. So whatever sock you wear, I mean, they're waterproof, right? Nothing's more waterproof than basically a rubber sheath around your foot. So they trap all the moisture in. So he wanted something that was going to pull the moisture away from his foot. So actually, it made a lot of sense from that standpoint. Now, I do think his feet probably get really cold because he does that, because he has no insulation whatever. It's all synthetics, and it's a thin polypropylene and then a heavy rubber on the outside. So
too long out there, and they're going to be soaking wet. So
yeah, but and that's interesting too. Like that's all another conversation. If something's waterproof, it's waterproof both ways, right?
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. As somebody who's done a little bit of duck hunting and stuff, there is nothing worse than stepping a half an inch above your waders, because guess what? That water's not coming out.
Going out for a long time. Yep.
So yes, I do wear liners. I did not used to. What I also like is it gives you a little bit of a backup plan. Like if your feet just get totally soaked, you have an extra sock. Yeah, you probably don't want to hike long wearing just a liner. But even if your liners are soaked, these will dry out really quick. So you can even, in a pinch, take off the liners, let them dry off while your other socks maybe aren't quite dry. And then it just gives you a little bit more flexibility and some options.
Okay.
And they make these in really heavy weights. I like to just get the absolute thinnest pair I can, because their job in my boot, foot, whatever system
combination
is purely to wick moisture away from my feet. Nothing more. Not to keep my feet clean, not to provide any cushioning, nothing other than that. So I like the thinnest ones possible. And, there may be such thing as a combination sock that wicks well and insulates and provides cushioning, but I have not found it yet. I found some things that kind of tried, but it's not better than having just separate liners and outer socks. And then to get into outer socks, I guess you were asking me some questions about that as well.
Yeah, so we talked about at least no cotton and polypropylene for the liners, correct?
Yep.
Actually, before we get into the socks themselves, any other materials you recommend or stay away from for the liner?
Nylon may be fine. I mean, if you think about old nylon stockings, in women's stockings, that was like the original trend way back in the day, right? Was wearing nylons. I think the whole thing is it's synthetic that's not going to hold any moisture.
Okay.
So if it's cotton, if it's thick at all, if it's not stretchy, but polypropylene, I don't know a lot about the chemical engineering between the difference between those things.
Okay.
Probably have somebody from DuPont on here to talk about that stuff. But I think the point is just it's a really thin synthetic.
All right. So getting into the outer liner, or sorry, the outer sock, whatever you're wearing over the liner, what kind of materials you recommend there?
The first thing I recommend, you already mentioned it earlier, is not cotton. Cotton is rotten. Cotton, very well marketed as the fabric of our lives, is popular because it's soft and because it's comfortable. If you're sitting at home all day, there's nothing more comfortable to wear than cotton. If you're just in an office, walking around a little bit, cotton's great. But the really bad part about cotton is when it gets wet, it gets stinky. When it gets wet, it takes a long time to dry. When it gets wet, it stretches like crazy. Those are all huge disadvantages for in your boots, on your feet, that are probably going to get wet. If it stretches, it means the material is no longer going to fit properly, and there's going to be some rubbing. If it takes a long time to dry, it means anything caused by wet boots, you're going to have that problem for that much longer. Getting stinky and nasty, other materials absolutely get stinky and nasty as well. And for hiking, that's not really a disadvantage, because you're going to get stinky. Like if you're on a long hike, doesn't matter what material it is, you're all going to get stinky and nasty, and people are just going to have to deal with it. If you're hunting, backcountry elk hunting, deer hunting, anything like that, it can matter a little bit, but to the nose of an elk or a moose or a deer, the second you walk out your door, you're stinky. So if you're that much more stinky, like the damage is kind of already done. So as far as materials, there are some nice blends that are very affordable and I think are pretty good. Most of those are acrylic. Some of them are all acrylic, and they can be fine. Be careful, they'll shrink a lot if you put them in the dryer or next to a heat source, and then they can not fit well. So be careful about any of the blends for that. You can get some acrylic and wool blends that are nice, because I think that combines the advantage of wool with acrylic, which is kind of a neutral material. And so you can get basically a wool sock that's thicker and comfortable at a much cheaper price. But I think this is a category where it kind of goes back down to buy once, cry once. I would rather, and I've shifted my mentality big time. I used to be a bargain shopper for all this stuff. I used to be like, well, I'm camping and I want to care for my feet, so I want to be able to have a fresh pair of socks for every single day. So in order to be able to afford a fresh pair of socks for every day, I'm going to buy some cheaper socks.
Cheap.
Yeah. Whereas now I would rather wear one pair of socks that's super high quality for many, many days. There's a huge natural problem with that, is what if you get those one pair soaking wet? So I don't recommend the one pair strategy, but basically if you have one pair that you're wearing and one pair that's ready to go in your pack, I think that's the best strategy. So maybe that actually means 3 pairs of socks. If maybe there's one you wear at night in camp, and then you have 2 pairs of hiking socks that you alternate on even and odd days, something like that, I think that works well. But all that to say, I've gone with higher quality materials. Recently, it's all been wool. Generally merino wool. I don't know enough about wool to know the difference between merino wool and another wool. I think if you walked up to a sheep and said, hey, excuse me, are you a merino? He would just say, bah. I don't know what it means. I know a lot of it's imported. I know a lot of it comes from New Zealand and a lot of other places, but I can't tell you the difference. But I've noticed a lot of high quality stuff specifically markets that it's merino wool. So that's the basic material. So a merino wool or a merino wool blend.
Okay. And then you already talked a little bit about number of pairs of socks. Is that for, 3-day, 5-day, 7-day? Does that number increase at all? Or, if you've got 2 pair for hiking and 1 pair for base, you're good to go. And I'm assuming that's 2 pairs of both liner and like inner and outer, and then same thing for in camp.
Yeah. I would say with that system, It kind of doesn't really change.
Okay.
It's kind of like the base weight, the weight on your pack before you add food and water, where you've got your tent, your sleeping bag, all your basic stuff. In that system, the longer hike, if you need more and more socks for a longer period, there's probably something wrong with your sock system, I would say.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or the exception is just if you're preparing for damage. If it's just to be comfortable, you shouldn't need more. But I say damage because, I don't know, I'm just dumb and reckless sometimes, I guess. I have had this system where I have one pair on my feet, one pair in my pack, and then I've been stuck in the rain for 3 days. So naturally, I'm trying to dry them out over a fire, and then I burn a hole in my sock. Especially with those. You been there? Yeah.
Yep.
I've melted a boot. I've burned a hole in my sock.
I actually think you melted one of my boots.
I did?
I think so.
Oh, well, you probably deserved it.
I probably did.
But, well, sorry about that.
Whatever. They were cheap anyway.
Yeah. But the damage factor can be real. So care for your feet, but care for your footwear as well. Even when, especially, I think it was a pair of acrylic socks, I had them sitting on a warm rock beside a campfire. And I was sitting there watching the steam come out of them thinking, 1, that must be stinky. 2, look at all the effective moisture that's coming out of that stock in that order. And then I picked it up and realized the whole bottom side of that was singed. And I'm like, it didn't even touch open flame, but a hot rock sometimes is enough to do it. So just be careful when you're cooking a sock some more. And another time, it was when I was in Idaho. We were way back in the mountains. It was early September, but we were pretty high, and we got a lot of snow. And I came from Dallas, where it was 90-something degrees, went into Idaho, went up about 5,000 feet from where I was. I think we were actually at close to 9 or 10. And then we got into the snow quick, and I was not wearing adequate footwear, and my feet got soaked. And so I hung my socks out to dry while I went hunting, came back the next day, and I found the whole heel of my sock had been devoured by a mouse, or I think one of those little ground squirrels. Timber tigers, they call them.
Yeah, they smelled really good or really bad.
I think it was the salt.
Oh.
Because at first I was like, wow, you would think all that human smell would scare away any animals. And I even know people who go hunting in Idaho and Montana where there's grizzly bears up there. And when they kill an elk or a mule deer and they hang their meat, they'll specifically take off their socks or like an undershirt or something and like drape that right by the meat. So there's lots of strong human smell by that. So I'm like, the smell would scare away any animals. But I think it was just a little mouse who was sneaky enough. And I think it was the salt in my sock. But all that to say, I came back, and I think that's when I was on the 2-pair system, not the alternating 2-pair and separate camp pair. And then with the pair I was wearing getting soaked in the snow the other day, I was wearing a heelless sock through the mountains. So I somehow don't think I got blisters that bad, but it worked out. I think you were asking me about brand earlier as well.
I was going to say, yeah, brand and then actual overall sock length are the last 2 questions I got for you.
Gotcha. So brand, I've been all over the place. I think as long as you find a quality, well-made wool sock, I don't think the brand matters. I think it's purely the material. Some of them, are going to be thicker, thinner, and I generally like a medium weight. Obviously, you can't feel it, and people listening to this later can't see what we're looking at. But a medium weight tends to work well, because even in freezing temperatures, this is enough. If you're hiking and moving. If you are just sitting still outside, you're going to be a little bit cold in a medium weight. But if you're hiking and moving, this is more than enough. And it gives you enough padding that even when you're scrambling up really rough stuff, it's fine without just totally roasting your feet, when you're out there in 80, 90, heck, 100 degrees in some of the stuff we've done. So I recommend medium weight almost for everybody, unless you're doing some just extreme winter like practically snowshoeing stuff. In terms of brand, this is what I'm currently wearing most right now, and it's just Shields brand, just their house brand. I'm sure somebody makes it for them. Shields doesn't have a factory with a bunch of women sewing socks. Well, at least not that I've found. So I'm pretty sure this is just.
More.
What's that?
Go hiking more. Maybe you'll find it.
Yeah. So it seems like almost all of the major boot companies now also sell a sock, and I think that's just kind of for a brand loyalty play. Be like, I have Danner boots, I must go with Danner socks. And I don't even know if Danner makes socks, but you just mentioned that brand earlier. Yep. Kinnetrek, they make really high-end boots. I see they make socks, so I think a lot of people just assume, oh, their socks must have some special mojo in them. But I think honestly, the material, as long as it's that, I've used Darn Tough that have been very good. I've used Smart Wool that were expensive but good. I've used Ingenji, I think is the name of the brand. That was a blend that I think was merino and bamboo. So I think the bamboo is a cleaner, thinner, slicker, low odor, but they were pretty expensive. Okay. But again, Shields brand is what I'm running right now. These are merino wool. They've been awesome. I originally bought 2 pairs. Now I'm down to a pair and a half. And that was the one I was telling you about. One thing that I've noticed on a couple of these hiking socks, I don't know if they're just trying to be fancy, but that one actually it's labeled left and right. Come on.
That particular? Like, come on now, yeah.
Come on. I'm sure somebody out there who goes backpacking all the time has a good reason for why it should matter. But if you're so particular that you have a left sock and a right sock and that makes a big difference, I don't know. I think I've just been roughing it way too much to even possibly consider that as something that's important.
Honestly, I think it'd bother me more because if I, grabbed like 4 left socks, it'd be like, oh, well, now I'm off balance here. Like, just give me unlabeled socks.
Yeah, like I can only hike loop trails like NASCAR. No straighter lollipop trails.
Yeah. And then the last question. I mean, I've always purchased socks just either above or, well above my boots. I always try to get good ankle protection. So most of my boots are, call it 6-8 inches high. So well above my ankle. Obviously you can get, no-show socks. You can get ankle socks. You can get a variety of lengths. Any recommendation on how high they need to go?
I think you're right. I would just say it depends on your boots. If I said, hey, get 8-inch long socks, but you're wearing, super, super tall boots or, low tops, then that's the wrong answer. I think they should go at least slightly above your boots, because a lot of times it's that top layer of your boot where it pillows out that's going to rub the most, right where usually the padded cushion layer meets the leather or the Gore-Tex. That's where it can really rub. So you definitely want full coverage and a little bit more because it's probably going to sag down just a little bit. If you've got just absolutely super tall socks, I don't think that's going to be an advantage in hiking in any way other than warmth. I see some people who hike in shorts and then wear really tall socks, I guess, to protect their legs. And to me, that's a little off because that's actually a lot hotter than just wearing long pants, lighter weight long pants. Because now you have like wool close to your body rather than nylon or Gore-Tex or a more breathable material with some airflow. So, I don't know, me being from Texas, I just don't really wear shorts in the woods. There's just, between cactus and ticks, and there's way too many prickly things to ever wear socks in the woods. So I would say slightly above your boots. I really like gaiters. That's something I used to never ever wear, and I've changed to wear more and more. So you don't necessarily have to have your socks go all the way up as tall as your gaiters, but it can help. Again, for just more insulation, but not necessary. Your gaiters can go well above your socks. Your socks just probably shouldn't poke out above your gaiters by any extreme measure. If you're wearing a normal mid-calf sock and you're wearing low-top gaiters, yeah, it's going to be up there a little bit. And I say that because one of the purposes of gaiters is waterproofing or snowproofing. If you're just hiking in the sand in the mountains, a lot of it's just keeping some of that cactus and rocks and stickers and ticks and chiggers, especially for me, off your ankles. But if you're way out west where you're hiking in some snow, gaiters are going to provide a very helpful layer of waterproofing. But if you have socks sticking right up above the gaiters, your socks can soak up some of that moisture, and they're going to kind of cheat your gaiters. They're going to soak the moisture all the way around and into the system. And now those waterproof gaiters are trapping the moisture in, and you get these really just like sweaty calves.
That's what everybody wants on a hike.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say just generally match your boot or match your gaiter as closely as possible, and you're fine. Nothing extreme beyond that. So.
All right. Well, that
Cool.
answers all my questions.
Well, do you know what boots you ended up getting? You said Danners, but do you know what model?
Not off the top of my head.
Are they insulated?
Yeah. It's the Danners. See if I can pull it up real quick.
Because you mentioned that, and they're a good brand. I don't have any relationship with them or any endorsement. I think there's so many good brands, and there's a lot of bad brands too. But from my experience, they're pretty good. I have a pair of Danner pronghorns that I've hiked the heck out of for 2 years, and they're very good, but I need to send them in and get them resold.
Yeah, actually, those are the pair that I ordered. Danner's pronghorn, 8-inch. I got the 1,200 gram. So a little thicker than, I think they also come in a 400 and 800.
You may want to go uninsulated, dude.
So I thought about it. I was able to get these for less than half price, which I know I'm still toying with the budget. I'm going to price these, size these, figure out kind of based off of the socks that I pick up, how well they work. I've got 30 days, so I'll take a look at them and then go from there.
Yeah, definitely wear them outside. I say that. These are Danner pronghorn, uninsulated. The Rocky Mountains took a bite out of my boot right there. That's part of why I need to get them resold. Yeah. And that's like coming off. And yeah, these have been through some rough stuff. Really. I mean, I've walked hundreds of miles in these things. But these are uninsulated, and I've worn them down to 30 degrees comfortably.
Okay.
Whereas these are my cold weather boots. I don't think they're as durable, but these are the Danner Vital, I think that's what they're called. Or maybe it's like Vital Trail, like a piece of cactus sticking out of there right now. If that doesn't tell you anything about what I do, I don't know what does. But these are, what are these? 400 gram insulation. And I have worn these down to, I don't know, 20s?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and most of the stuff we're hiking, doesn't get below freezing. So I'll give these a shot. I'll take a look at them, especially with the temperatures warming up here.
Yeah, because you have 3 times the amount of insulation as this. You bought like Arctic boots.
Like I said, they were, I think, 130 compared to normal, 270.
Dude, that's excellent. That's excellent, because I think what I bought, I think these were, well over 200.
Yeah,
I think.
And that's why I was like,
250.
and they were my size. I said, you know what? We'll see what they look like. We'll see what they do. I might hold on to them anyway.
Yeah.
Just because, hey, go cold weather, go hunting in the snow.
Exactly.
Have a good pair. But
I mean, with a deal like that, and that's interesting. It's just like, you find great deals on like Christmas wrapping paper in June.
Yep.
I mean, it's that kind of thing. And in December, you can probably find a great deal on a beach umbrella. So that may be why you're finding a good deal. And so it may be that they're super comfortable and you just hang on to them and you wear those for colder stuff and then maybe get another pair for warmer stuff. That's what I'm doing right now, because like I said, I need to get those resold, and I put it off. My plan was, in December, January, I'll send those in, get them resold. So hopefully they're fixed and back, by the time I'm wearing shoes for hiking boots for warmer months. But I procrastinated. So now I got to figure out what to do here. They probably have another hike or two in them. They're not totally falling apart yet.
You could probably make it work. Just don't burn a hole in them. But
I'll just try to impress them with what I send in. They'll be like,
Nope,
this is how good our warranty program is. Like, we even took care of this asshole. I know some of the scope brands do that kind of stuff. But
It's like, yeah, look at how much we've done.
yeah, these things can take a licking. Cool. Well, does that answer all your boot questions?
It does. It does.
Cool. Well, thank you for hopping on. For everybody who is listening, hopefully if you had any questions about boots, socks, all this stuff, we answered them, because I didn't know I could talk this long about boots and shoes. That's a weird thing for a straight guy to do, but we sure did it. So I hope you enjoyed this. Until next time, stay safe, be free, and never stop seeking adventure.